Let me ask you a question. What would it look like if America was being invaded? Would it be a scenario like Normandy when you have thousands of troops and thousands of boats ready to storm the beaches? Or would it be a Red Dawn scenario where you have thousands of planes and paratroopers parachuting out of the sky and landing in rural America ready to set up operations and take over? Honestly, I don't believe it would be either of those scenarios just due to where we are geographically. However, it might look something a little more like this. Yeah, perhaps it might look something a little more like this. And what's not apparent in that video, and this is a different angle of that, is the fact that they had already torn through one of the fences down here. And then this was the fence that everybody saw in that video, right in this area. Violently tearing that fence down and rushing through the National Guard. When you go to someone's borders and you're begging to be let in, that is one thing. But when you blow past troops that are guarding that border, I think that falls into the territory of an invasion, not asylum seekers, because you were told no and you decided to go against that country's laws and bulldoze your way through troops to get there. Now, luckily, this was not a scenario where they were authorized to use force, because there could have been hundreds of people dead. Now, the sad thing is that, unfortunately, our police force would have a lot less tolerance for stuff like this and would have been launching tear gas, rubber bullets, and perhaps if you were striking police and things like that, you might even have been shot and killed. And that's a sad thing. They can't do anything about it. And the migrants knew that.
Yes, there were much less migrants here at the U.S.-Mexico border at Gate 36, probably dozens rather than the hundreds that we saw yesterday. However, tensions between Texas officials and migrants still remained high.
Now, this is days afterwards.
Texas National Guardsmen and state troopers wearing helmets and bulletproof vests, warning migrants over loudspeakers that they will be arrested if they trespass or damage the razor wire. Guns drawn, people reporting that they were shooting non-lethal projectiles. These scenes coming after Governor...
Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, arresting them, not doing the same thing as the Border Patrol, detaining them and then processing and then sending them on their way, especially with how lenient judges and the law has been towards immigrants and criminals lately. They just let them go. Basically, if you're arresting them, you're doing the same thing that the Border Patrol is doing. You're not sending them back. You're not doing any of that. You're just bringing them in handcuffs instead of, on their own 2 feet and with their belongings in their hands. So it's not really much different at that point. I'm not thinking that they're sending them back into Mexico after that, because Mexico's saying that if you you can't send these people back. So they're telling us we can't send them back, but they're letting them through to our border.
Governor Abbott deployed more National Guard troops to Gate 36 on Friday and installed more razor wire in response to the incidents a day earlier, when over 500 migrants rushed the border past National Guard troops to turn themselves into Border Patrol. El Paso's district attorney confirming one migrant was detained after assaulting a National Guardsman.
And that's the thing. Once you start assaulting the troops, then that becomes, seems to me like an invasion. Because now you're basically interacting with the military, and once it becomes a military thing, well, then it kind of becomes an invasion. These are all military men all men of military age. These are all men of military age, and they're coming across the border. I'm not seeing many kids or women or children in this, so I'm tired of hearing the bullshit from people that these kids and women need to get across for, a better life. This isn't what's happening. You got young men kind of in their prime age. They know they can make money here, send it back to their country, make life better for their family there, while driving down all the wages and everything to here. And don't tell me it's this matter of they're willing to do the work that other people aren't willing to do. That's bullshit. The reason why people aren't willing to do the work that they're doing is simply because they want paid more for the cost of living in the United States. That's all they want. If a company is making record profits, I don't see why it shouldn't be paying record wages. It seems to me that the more money you make, the more money you should pay. The amount of money that a business makes should correlate along with the wages going up as well. So if the business makes 1% to 2% more money per year, which a lot of them have been growing at anywhere from 6 to 12%, well, then the people should be making 6 to 12% more money as well. 6% more money of $20 an hour is a lot less than 6% of, 5 million or 12 million or 100 million.
It starts at the crisis on the border in Eagle Pass, right near the U.S. border with Mexico. CBS News Texas cameras caught migrants giving themselves up and wanted Texas law enforcement to arrest them. This is happening as the Texas response to migration ramps up even more, with the National Guard putting up new razor wire this week in and around Eagle Pass. For weeks now, we've been telling you what's happening in Eagle Pass, and it's held the attention of the nation, especially in Shelby Park. That is where the Texas Military Department right now is arresting migrants and blocking access to federal agents.
They're trying to protect their own border, and they should be able to do so. And I think it was just upheld in the Supreme Court that they could for now, anyways. However, they aren't given any ability to use any kind of force right now. So that's the thing. Now, one thing we got to remember is that the cartels are involved with this. All those people that are rushing the border and everything like that, some people are bringing in drugs. And they're hurting your kids. I think one of the number one drugs that kids are doing these days, anywhere between the ages, and it's sad to say, 11 up to 20 something, a lot of them are getting involved in fentanyl. They are willingly taking fentanyl. And that's the sad thing about it. And the cartels, they don't care that they're selling to kids. In fact, they also are selling kids. All right, we are going to go ahead and watch a controversial video that came out about a year ago between Senator John Hawley and Alejandro Mayorkas about the child trafficking that was going on at the border. Now, this video keeps popping back up, and it should, to remind people of what's really going on. Now, this is one of those videos that, whether you're on the right or left, that you need to see. And if you're on the right and you're having an argument with somebody who's defending these border policies on the left, you need to show them this video and see what the reaction is. Now, if they try to even defend this type of evil, I don't know what to say there. Me personally, I wouldn't allow them around my kids, and I damn sure probably quit talking to them, because that's not the type of person I would want to be around. If they can't come to the conclusion after watching this video that maybe we should put a pause on this and see how we could get rid of the evil part and still do the good part, the humanitarian part. If we can't have the good without this evil part, then we shouldn't be doing it. And there's no acceptable amount of evil when it comes to something like this at all. It's just absolutely disgusting. And anybody who would want this, that's a disturbed individual that I would not want in my life, and I would not let near me with a 10-foot pole. You might want to break your TV after this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thanks for being here. Let's talk about the surge in child smuggling and child exploitation that is happening on your watch. Do you know the number of unaccompanied children who have come across the border on your watch?
Senator, I don't have that number at my disposal, but I can assure you that we are incredibly dedicated to the safety and security of those children.
Now, we are going to pause this video probably quite a bit to try to break down what liars try to do. Okay, now he just lied about what he even just said. For one, if you were trying to make sure that you had a handle on this and you were deeply concerned, you would have those numbers. The fact that you don't have those numbers means you ain't even looked and you don't care.
Well, it doesn't appear so based on what we're reading today in the New York Times, what we're reading and seeing from numbers from your own office. The answer to my question, by the way, is 345,807. That's the number of unaccompanied children who have come across the border on your watch. Do you know what's happening to these?
That's 345,000 children that they were able to document that came through the border, unaccompanied. Now, my question to everybody is, how? Why are these children unaccompanied? Did they start off with their mother or father? What happened to them? Did their mother and father just send them by themselves to come to America? A child. Now, that raises a whole bunch of questions, right? Why on earth would we want to allow that? If those men send a child to go collect money in America and send back by themselves, where they know children and women are being abused, that is not okay. And anybody who could defend that part of the culture, I don't know what to say.
These children, have you seen this report from the New York Times? Alone and exploited migrant children work brutal jobs across the United States. Have you seen this?
Senator, I have, and let me share with you what we are doing.
Have you seen these numbers? These are reports of trafficking and abuse of migrant children. You can see a massive surge that begins to happen when? Oh, when you come to office in 2021. Huge surge, reports of trafficking, reports of neglect and abuse. Let's just look at a few of the details. This is absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe this happens in the United States of America in this day and age. This is from the New York Times. Thousands of children have ended up in punishing jobs across the country, working overnight in slaughterhouses, replacing roofs, operating machinery in factories, all in violation of child labor laws. For example, there's a young girl named Carolina from Guatemala. She is 15 years old. What does she do? She packages Cheerios overnight.
And here's the thing. We all know how hard it is to get a job in America. You have to have a license. You have to bring your social security card. Sometimes you have to bring your birth certificate. You have to do a background check. Some jobs you have to have a security clearance depending on if they have government contracts or not. And then you have to go through an orientation process. And I mean, it's a whole thing, right? And a lot of people are having trouble just finding jobs. Now, why is that? That's because companies that are greedy and want to keep wages low are allowing this, right? They are allowing it. There's no way they didn't know these people were in their facility. That's just not possible. Now, here's the huge issue. Now, this is where Democrats got it right. Back in the day with the corporations, they're greedy and they are despicable and sometimes just straight up evil. They are actually wanting illegal immigrants to come into the United States and drive down wages. And now they've gone so far as to use kids. That's absolutely evil on so many levels.
At a factory, she says, sometimes I get tired and I feel sick. The Times goes on, her stomach often hurt. She wasn't sure if that was because of a lack of sleep or the stress of the incessant roar of the machines or her own worry. The Times goes on, far from home, many of these children are under intense pressure to earn money. They have to send cash back home to their families while often being in debt to their sponsors.
So you hear that? They're sending money back to their families. Children got sent here by their family. What mom or dad in an American culture would do that? Send their child to a different country to make money for them. Who would do that? And I don't even care if you're talking about a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, 15, but you got some of them are 14, 10, 12. What parent would do that? And this is the culture we're allowing to invade America. People that would send their children out on their own, which tells me they don't give a shit about them. If they don't give a shit about their own children, do you think they care about you? My guess is probably not. And what's even more disturbing is we are shutting down farms and arresting farmers for teaching their kids how to farm and having their kids help out on the farm. And now we're allowing this because they're illegal immigrants and they're protected.
Quote unquote. For what? For smuggling fees, rent, and living expenses. One individual interviewed by the Times said this, and I'm still quoting, "It's the new child labor. You're taking children from another country and putting them into indentured
Now, did he
servitude."
say how
I could go
old
on
this girl
and
was?
on. Overnight, there's a young girl named Carolina from Guatemala. She is 15 years old.
15-year-old.
What does she do? You're taking children from another country and putting them into indentured servitude. I could go.
Now, that's a word we got to talk about. Indentured servitude. That word's been lost to a lot of people. But basically, that means that you're going to exchange your labor or some type of skill that you have to pay off a debt. And what that means also is that you're not going to have pretty much no money or anything to survive until you pay off that debt. They might allow you to send some money back, which maybe they're sending money back to the cartels. I'm not sure. But they're not going to allow you to leave. You're going to do what they ask until that debt is paid off. Now, that was something that was going on during a time that everyone is very, very angry about in American history. And that was a time of slavery. Indentured servitude was another form of slavery. And it's basically, it was the same thing. They just needed to come up with a different word because the white people at the time didn't want to be called slaves because that was associated with the Africans at the time. So they wanted to be called something different. So they started calling it indentured servitude. So modern day slavery. Now, anybody on the left that can defend modern day slavery in America, you are letting your own people come here as slaves. 345,000 children that were by themselves, over 100,000 lost to the system. Some of these 345,000 found in factories working as slaves. Now, a lot of people don't know is in indentured servitude, you don't get paid what the normal worker would get paid, no $20 an hour, nothing like that. You might make $2 to $5, under $10 an hour. So to try to pay back that debt, you're working 3 times as long as it would take somebody normally to do it. Maybe 4 times or 5 times. You're making that much less. Why? Because what are you going to do about it? They can pay you whatever they want to a point where they could just, people would just be like, no, I'm not doing that job. But for the most part, they can pay you whatever they want to, and you're going to have to do it because you need to pay back that debt. So for people on the left saying that it's okay for child slavery, and don't forget that the adults have to go through this too. So they are also slaves to the cartels. I don't know how you defend that. I really don't.
Go on and on. The Times details over a multi-month investigation. Kid after kid, child after child. One 13-year-old forced to wash hotel sheets in Virginia. Kids running milking machines in Vermont, delivering meals.
Do you hear that? A 13-year-old. So it's not just people that are, close to working age. A 13-year-old. Would you be okay with your 13-year-old daughter, Mr. and Mrs. Democrat, working in a factory around dangerous equipment that most adults these days can't even have the mental capacity to handle? I mean, you got adults chopping their fingers and hands off, let alone a child. And these companies are letting it happen. I honestly, if they didn't shut these companies completely down because of this, and if there weren't actual employees that didn't turn them in. I think everyone should have been arrested that knew about this.
In New York City,
Damn
scrubbing
shame.
dishes late at night, all in violation of our country's laws, all facilitated by your policies. Are you proud of this record?
And that's what one thing, I'm sorry to keep pausing it so much, but we got to hit these points. Whether the humanitarian portion of this was a thing or not, whether this was designed or not, this is an outcome of what the policies are. So if you can't at least agree to pause this until we can get rid of this, there's no saving you. God has a special place in hell for you.
Senator, the horrific exploitation of children is something that we do not condone. You are incorrectly attributing it to our policies.
How is he incorrectly contributing? The policies created that type of environment to happen. Whenever you have the government basically child trafficking for these people, this is going to happen. Whenever you let thousands of people through the border every single day, this is going to happen. So I don't know how you could say that. And to say I don't condone this type of behavior is such a fucking cop-out. Doesn't matter if you condone it or not. What are you doing to stop it? What did you try to do to stop it? Did you even try? Doesn't matter if you condone the behavior or not. It's a consequence of the policies.
Let me share with you.
Wait a minute. It began, look at the numbers. It began, this massive surge began when you came to office. In your first year in office, there was a 342% surge of unaccompanied children across the border. You know, CBS reported that I'm going to quote them now, Mr. Biden's election, as well as policy changes announced by his administration, those would be your changes, led smugglers to tell migrant youth they had a better chance of being allowed to stay in the United States than they had under Trump. Meanwhile, you've lost track of tens of thousands of them. The Times also reviewed data that showed the government couldn't reach more than 85,000 of these children who they just turned over into the hands of smugglers these are modern day slave traders. And you're just giving these children to them. What is going on? Why are you doing this?
Senator,
that's a great question.
Of course, there are a number of factual inaccuracies in your question, but let me address two lines of effort that we have to combat the scourge of exploitation.
Why don't we just start with why you enabled it? Can we just start with that? Why is it that you have enabled 345,000 children to be smuggled across this border and then sent into the hands of modern day slave traders? In 2021, you made the decision to change Title IV.
I'm really glad I'm not the only one that was saying the word slave traders or slavery. I'm really glad that that he actually said it, because that's what it is. There's just no way that you can defend this. This is just, to even try makes you a despicable human being. You should say, look, we are aware this started happening, and we are taking steps to prevent it. We are shutting down this border policy in order to fix that part of the problem. That's what the right answer would have been there. But that's not what he gave. That's not what he was trying to say. Oh, there's no point for, I know Holly, they would get mad because they won't even let him answer because there's no way you can answer that question. It's a trap. Senator Hawley set a trap for him. There's no way that you could defend it. And that's his job, is to defend the policies of the president, right? But there's no way you can defend it. So it was a trap for him to even start doing it. Hawley cut him off because he doesn't want to hear it, because there is no defending it. And he doesn't even want to hear the sly lie come out of his mouth. He just wanted him to start trying to defend it. That's it. By him doing that, he shows what kind of person that Mayorkas was.
42, to allow unaccompanied children to come into the United States and then to be sent into the interior of the country. Under the last administration, children were reunited with their families in their home country. You changed that, and as soon as you changed it, the numbers exploded. That is your responsibility.
Quite a number of false statements, Senator.
What is false about that statement?
So if I can state what I've been trying to state, one of the significant policy decisions that we have made is to focus our worksite enforcement investigative efforts, our criminal investigative efforts on unscrupulous employers that exploit individuals because of their vulnerabilities, and that includes underage workers.
That is not what the New York Times investigation found. Mr. Chairman, I just ask at this point, I'd like to enter into the record. The New York Times article is migrant children were put to work, U.S. ignored warnings. This is from April 17th, 2023. This is this morning. And I'd also like to enter into the record the New York Times article, alone and exploited migrant children work brutal jobs across the U.S. This is from February 25th, 2023.
And that's the thing. Like, honestly, if the New York Times was finding this out, how could the government not know when they're supposed? He said they were keeping track of all this. So that means you knew they went there, right? You knew that they were doing this. If you were keeping track, right? How do you defend it? Can't. If a news agency, and let's not get it twisted, New York Times has not been the greatest towards, telling the actual truth. But on something like this, I'm glad that they did. I'm glad they reported it, and I'm glad it didn't get suppressed, because that's what happens a lot of times in these stories. And a lot of times, yeah, they put it out there. It's not on the front page. It's just out there. And it's out there for just a little bit. It's good that people catch these, sometimes on the back pages, because then they can say, well, we reported it, so you can't say that we're on the left. But you put it on the back pages. It should have been a front page story, but you were sitting here talking about how Biden was eating ice cream and riding a bike. That was the front page news. But children being trafficked? Nah. So I'm glad that there's people out there digging this stuff out of those news agencies and finding these stories that they try to just kind of glaze over one story. That's about it. Luckily, they had a person who thought this was important, maybe a few people that thought this needed to get out, and maybe that was just a little too much for them. And I'm glad it came out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What these articles show, Mr. Secretary, is that the administration has done nothing but facilitate this crisis. You changed Title 42. You allowed hundreds of thousands of migrant children to come across the border, and then you made it worse. When they became a political crisis for you, when that huge surge of kids across the border because you changed Title 42, when it became an optics crisis, what did you do? You began pressuring officials and agencies to skip the vetting process and get these kids out as soon as possible to sponsors who weren't vetted. Here's the Times again. As shelters filled with children, the administration began loosening vetting restrictions and urging case managers to speed the process along. You have at every stage facilitated this modern day indentured servitude of minor children. Why should you not be impeached for this?
Well, it should be more than that.
Senator, I look forward to discussing this issue further, because you are misstating the facts so terribly.
I am reading you the facts from articles in the news, and your usual modus operandi is what you're doing again today, was just to deny. Why have you permitted 345,000 children to come into this country unaccompanied? Why have you permitted thousands of them to be abused and exploited?
Senator, what we do is we enforce the law. But let me just say this.
But you're not.
It is stunning to me, to hear you say that the prior administration reunited children with their parents.
Oh, I see. So this is their fault? So you're not going to take any responsibility for the indentured servitude and exploitation of children that is happening on your watch. A moment ago, you were crowing about the fact that you treated children so well, and yet we find tens of thousands of children who are forced to work as slaves because of your policies, and you turn around and blame a prior administration. Mr. Secretary, this is par for the course for you. You do it every time you appear before this committee. You do it every time you appear before Congress. I, for one, am sick and tired of it, and thousands of children are in physical danger because of what you are doing. You should have resigned long ago, and if you cannot change course, you should be removed from office. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Man, it's just hard to even watch that. New York Times put those out, and he was saying that he was misstating the facts. How can you misstate the fact that 345,000 children came through? That's reported, right? That was a number that was reported. How do you misstate that fact? You don't. You're not misstating the fact that was 345,000 that came over unaccompanied. How do you misstate the fact that these people are found in these factories working jobs that are well above their skill level in some cases and against the law in all the cases. A farmer can't let his kid help him out on the farm and learn all the trade of farming, but these kids can be smuggled into the country by the government into indentured servitude, which is modern day slavery. Indentured servitude, past or present, just was wrong. And we know that. That's why there's no debtor's jail. That's why we don't have labor camps here. But these kids are in basically labor camps until they pay off their debt. Part of that money was from the cartel needing to pay that certain border patrol member to let them through. So part of that is paying those guys off. Part of it is paying off government officials. We know that's going on. So how I don't know how you could even try to sit here and say someone's misstating the facts. The facts are those kids came through. They are found at jobs. How can you misstate that? How can you take that any other way? And it was a direct result under the policies of what you're permitting. There's no way to misstate that. That is a direct correlation. When you take office, change the procedures, and then what follows after is the consequence of you changing the procedure. It's just absolutely disgusting. So then when a state tries to take it into their own hands to stop some of this, for one, a lot of this was happening in their own state. For two, they're tired of paying to bust these people out of here, right? Taxpayers paying to bust these people, give them money, give them a ride to wherever they want to go. They're tired of it. After watching that video and knowing what's going on, and I don't think anyone could legitimately say they don't know that those type of things are going on. And if they say they don't, they're a liar. They're a straight up liar. But even with that, people are still trying to defend this behavior. Let's take a look at another video of what Texas is trying to do to handle some of this. And they are making an arrest, and let's go over who they're arresting.
Or single females, single males, but they must be at least 18 years of age.
Sergeant Cordova says this new arrest authority is not the same as the proposed Senate Bill 4. This comes under a disaster declaration from Governor Abbott, and it's meant to serve as a deterrent.
Once you start enforcing that law, the word will get out real quick and it'll start deterring people away from this area.
That was a case about a mile upstream from Shelby Park where we met a pair of migrants.
That's right. They're just trying to get people away from the area because they know there's nothing they could do under the Biden policies with the border to stop this completely. So all they can do is push it down the road to Arizona until they wake up.
Named Edwin and Wilmer from Guatemala, who say they were looking for another area to cross where they wouldn't be immediately arrested.
And what's your plan right now? To go look for Border Patrol?
So what they just said is that they're walking along the border here. They're looking for Border Patrol agents so that they can surrender to them. They're going to keep going upstream here. Obviously, they can't cross here because of the barbed wire.
So this is what the right means by the government smuggling these people in illegally. All they have to do is get past the National Guard, get to Border Patrol, and Border Patrol will smuggle them into the country.
Those responsible for the enforcement here say it's working, with numbers of crossings dramatically dropping. But for migrant advocates and Eagle Pass residents like America Garcia, this scale of operation is just too heavy-handed.
I would not have expected that this was possible in a democratic country. It just doesn't.
Really? Because people don't want kids getting sold into sex traffic rings and put into modern-day slavery. Maybe the reason why is because you don't share our culture.
Doesn't seem like something that we would do.
She's part of the Eagle Pass Border Coalition, who's pushing for the tension between state and federal authorities at Shelby Park to end.
I want the people from Texas Military Department and Department of Public Safety to go home. They're not from here.
I don't see this going away anytime soon until there's a change, higher ups.
Hey, good luck on that.
But this is a situation that's not going to go away overnight.
Now, what's crazy about that lady is that, come on, she's had to have heard some of the things that these women and children are enduring to get into this country. Why would she be okay with that? I just don't understand. And yes, this is a democratic society. That does not apply to people trying to cross into the United States illegally. They are not citizens. They are not privy to the things that we have in America because they are not from here. If they want to be here, they should do it through the legal process. Not jump the National Guard, knock them down, and just force your way in. Not how you do it. That's not okay. Not only that, you tore down 2 sets of razor wire. You destroyed American property to get here. So you already committed a crime just right there. Then you're trying to get in illegally. Crossed in illegally. There's number 2. What other crimes are they going to commit? Well, New York found out not very long ago, didn't they? About a month ago. And what did they do after they did find out? What the potential of some of these migrants and what they're going to do. What did they choose to do with people who were committing crimes? Let's take a look at this video.
I'm Steve Lacey.
And I'm Natasha Burma. 6 men have been charged in connection to that brutal attack caught on camera. And the NYPD is still looking for more suspects. Let's get right to Fox 5's Kendall Green live in Times Square with the latest. Kendall?
Hey, good evening, Steve and Natasha. This has become a pretty complex legal process in just a matter of days. Now there's a fear looming that the men involved with that attack could avoid being brought to justice. 2 of a dozen migrants accused in a vicious Midtown attack over the weekend appeared in court Thursday and stepped with droves of NYPD officers in a show of support for 2 of their own, pummeled on camera Saturday evening. The duo were the 6th and 7th arrest made Wednesday, but only 24-year-old Yohenry Brito was charged with robbery and felony assault in the attack. Concerning 21-year-old Yandri Barros, District Attorney Alvin Bragg's office declined to prosecute, citing a lack of evidence to prove his involvement.
We have to ask the question, why did these 4 individuals be released on their own recognizance?
Wednesday's arrest followed 4 migrants also arrested and charged in the assault Saturday and 1 later Monday. Yet all were released but 1 who was under a supervised release. The calls for justice in the attack just keep coming in, including this one by the PBA president.
What the fuck? And if an American did that, what would happen? For one, the police would have fucked you up. They would have beat the shit out of you, maybe even shot you. And then they would have found out a way to not charge you for a few days and then, not, maybe lose the court paperwork or your hearing. Yeah, that's what they would have did to an American. But not them, right? Not them.
Just outside of the courtroom Wednesday morning.
They brutally attacked a New York City police officer and a lieutenant. Our criminal justice system is upside down. It fails every day.
Governor Hochul behind the podium hinted deportation should be looked at for the migrants involved in the attack before saying it plainly and clearly.
Get them all and send them back. You don't touch our police officers. You don't touch anybody.
Republican Staten Island Congressman Nicole Maliotakis.
She's probably called racist for that.
Democratic policies at City Hall have made this much more difficult for our law enforcement than it needs to be.
But the road to capturing and convicting all of the attackers involved is getting rocky, as some have reportedly already fled the city.
And the problem that ICE has is that because the NYPD is prohibited from sharing information and the city is denying any detainer requests, it makes it very difficult.
While officials,
hold on, I thought she said deport them.
Joint local and federal pursuit of the accused shouldn't be
so she was
that
just
tall of
grandstanding.
If the federal authorities are able to get a warrant for the arrest of these individuals, we are allowed to work with them and participate with that.
Meantime, Assistant Commissioner Cass Daughtry posted this video to X with a warning to the suspects.
We will scour the globe to find you.
Yeah, no, you won't. No, you won't. You'll be told to stand the fuck down and shut the fuck up. That's what'll happen. And you'll do it. All right, so I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. They sit there and beat up a police officer and they got out without bail. Didn't even get charged for bail. You name an American citizen that could do some shit like that. Let a white dude do that. See what happens. Hell, even a black dude can't get away with that shit. All right, we're going to go ahead and have to cut the video there because it is going to get too long. There is too many angles that I can come at this from. So I'm going to have to at least make a part 2. If not, this is going to be a series because there's a multiple amount of layers to this. It isn't just South America coming through Mexico into our southern border. There's more countries than that, more people involved in this invasion and takeover over the American culture. So we're gonna have to get into that in another video. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And if you do anything, please just share that first video I went over with someone. Whether they agree or not, especially if they don't agree, share that first part of that video and ask them how they feel about that. Because there's just no defending that. And if they can at least come to the conclusion of we may need to put a pause on these policies and figure out a way to help them people out and get rid of this evil part, if they can at least come to terms with that, then there is a huge, huge problem. And again, the senator was quoting the New York Times. It wasn't like he was quoting Fox or some right-wing news agency. This was the New York Times. And luckily somebody there put the story out. Luckily they were able to get it out. Now, I don't know if it was just meant to kind of fly under the radar, under the back pages or what. But a lot of times that's how they do it, just so they could say they cover it and they're not left-wing. We cover all those stories. A lot of times they hide that in the back. And it's talked about once and never again. So hopefully we can get this out to more and more people. But we do need to start talking about this because this is an erosion of American culture. The people that came here legally wanted to integrate and be involved in the American culture. These people that are coming across do not. They fly their flags from their own country. They make it so that it's illegal to, or against rules to put up your own flags in your own neighborhood or your own school. Ask yourself that question. If your country was so good, then why did you come? You can't go to China and do this. You can't go to Russia and do this. You can't go to Mexico and do this. I mean, imagine if you went down to Mexico and tried to tell them they can't fly the Mexican flag in their neighborhoods. Or talk about your Second Amendment rights or your First Amendment rights down there. Or go to China and do the same thing. Crazy. So let's get this out there. Again, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. I'm working my way up to my first 100. I really appreciate it if you stayed with me this long. And what's it going to take to get the word out to everyone? What's it going to take to wake them up? It's going to take videos like that to shake people up. Something indefensible, something they cannot defend. It's going to take some skill and knowledge. It's going to take some compassion. And it's going to take you doing the work to put the information out there. Or maybe even just sharing videos like this. And giving small little channels like this support. But most of all it takes is all you got. Peace.